Hey everyone, this is Damon with PickSnub Software, and this is just a quick video to discuss the new Easy Team Builder version 2. This is the version with the multi-row option. I'm just going to use the default settings, except I'm going to check Use Smart Objects, just so I can talk about that when it's done. And it does give you a warning that says it can use a lot of RAM when you use Smart Objects. Next thing, it just asks you to verify the settings you're using. And then last, it gives you an option to specify how many images per row. It automatically fills this out for you, but you don't have to use the same numbers. You don't even have to use the same number of rows. We could put all 56 images into 2 rows or 3 rows if we wanted to, but for this I'm just going to use what it shows. Alright, it finished in 5 minutes and 39 seconds, which is actually a little bit slower than normal because I'm recording 4K video, so it slows it down a little bit, but nonetheless, it is finished. And when it's done, it will organize everything into layer groups for you. So you've got everything under an Easy Team Finished folder, and then each row with the individual players are in their own folder as well. And when I check that Smart Objects on, we'll just discuss that real quick. What that means, and you can see the little icon here, is that we've got the full resolution original image embedded into the file, so that scaling is done non-destructively. You just need to be careful if you're using Smart Objects that you have a computer that can handle it for the size of images that you're doing, because as mentioned, that can use a lot of memory. So the rows, these are not actually in the same order as you see in the team build. For example, row 5 is on top in the image, but in the layer panel, it's on the bottom, because these are backwards. Because I'll just explain, or move this to the top here to explain that. If row 5 was on the top in the layer panel, those images would be in front of the other images, because anything in the layer panel that's above is in front of anything that is below. So that's why those are backwards. And then also within your rows, you'll see that they're not in numerical order either. We've got row 1, player 1, then 2, and then it skips to 5, 4, 3. Now what that's doing is it's defining which players are in front of other players. So for example, player 5 will always be in the 5th place left to right. So you can see player 5 is the player with the number 10 here. If we wanted to move them behind these 2 players for any overlapping, you could just move those players up or down, and you change how they overlap with each other. So to move things around, if you want to move an entire row, select the entire group that you want to move. And then, very important, if you want to move a whole row, make sure you go into the Move tool and uncheck the Auto Select. And then you can move the whole row if you're on the folder. I'll just demonstrate what happens if you try to move a row when the Auto Select is on. The Auto Select grabs wherever you're clicking. It grabs the player that you're over and moves the individual player. So if you're wanting to move players around, make sure you have that selected on. Then you can just grab anybody you want to reposition and reposition them into place. So how this is organized the team, at least for the default settings, is it's grouped by layer, or not by, it's grouped by height. And so the in this case, the 12 shortest people are on the bottom row, and then the next shortest are in the second row, and then the tallest are on the top row, with the exception of these coaches, and I'll show you in a minute how I forced them to be on the top row. But also within each row group, they are not arranged in any particular order as far as height. It's actually randomized. And the reason why is because it looks a lot more natural. If you were to put the shortest on the left and the tallest on the right for each row, the entire image would have a lean to it. And so it's going to group each row by height, but then it's going to put them in a random order. So every time you run that, if we ran the same group, you would see these same 12 players in the bottom row, but they would be ordered differently each time. And so while I'm thinking about it, I'll show you how I got these coaches onto the top row. So if you have any files that you want on the top or on the bottom, you can put the first word as top or bottom in the file name. So you see we have top 6, top 7, top 8, then 10 and 11. And if it sees that word top or bottom, it's going to force them to the middle of the top or bottom row. And in this case, there is only 2 players to the left and 3 players to the right, so they're not quite in the middle. That's just because of the number of players in the row. So, but it will get them as close to the middle as it can. And I purposely, for this demonstration, did it this way, where I named it top 1, 0, and then with the number 8, with the 6, 7, and 8, I did not put a leading 0 in front of that, because I want to show you when you are using the top or the bottom, it's going to place those alphanumerically. And what that means is if you can control the placement of the top and bottom images, but for the case of alphanumerically, you're going to need to have your leading 0. So if you wanted 6, 7, and 8 to come after 10 and 11, it would have to be top 06, top 07, top 08. So you can see on this one, alphanumerically, top 10, which is this image here, and then top 11, which is this image, come alphanumerically before 6, 7, and 8, if that makes sense. So you can just make sure to put the leading zeros in, and then you can control those alphanumerically. And then the last thing is, well, there's a few things, but I'll discuss these more in another video. But in this image, we are aligned to the feet, so we're showing the actual height difference between the players. You can also align to the face or partial in between the feet and the face. And there's also settings to control the spacing between players as well as the spacing between the rows. So make sure to watch the next few videos where I discuss that in a little more detail. It's actually pretty easy, but I will be discussing that in the other videos.